File naming and folder organization will be one of the primary tools you have to manage your data. There are many ways that you may end up organizing your files, and primarily what you want from this organization structure is something that will create obvious expectations about what you will find in each folder. As you can see from this example, if you were coming to this project for the first time and you needed to reference the IRB participant consent form or a specific interview that took place, it would be pretty easy to browse to find the document you might be looking for. As this comic shows, though, if you are not proactive as you progress through your research and create new files, then you may end up with groups of files that are actively difficult or impossible to navigate. To avoid this problem, there are a number of different strategies you can use to organize your files. Your folder structure is primarily a way of grouping similar or related files together, and some possible grouping strategies are listed here. Based on how you conceptualize your research, you might organize your files by what stage of the process they're part of, by the type of data or the type of material, or by the activity. Or you might use a combination of all of these. However, in the middle of a research project, or if you have multiple projects ongoing when you might be rapidly collecting or creating files, it can be hard to stay organized. We'll go over some tips to help with this. Whatever organizational scheme you create should be one that is relatively easy for you to remain consistent with. What consistency creates is an expectation. Even if you don't know exactly where a specific file is saved, you should be able to rely on your system to know where it should have been saved and look there first. Make sure that you don't leave important project files hanging around in your download folder or on your desktop. Both of those are intended to be temporary locations. If you're anything like me, when you run out of disk storage on your laptop, you go to your download folder first to clear out space. You don't want to forget that you have project files there and accidentally delete them. We've been talking about using your folders to help you group related files together, and these folders need to be descriptive enough for you to understand what's contained in them. However, you don't want to rely solely on your folder structure to tell you what the files are about. We'll talk about this a bit more in a few slides. You will inevitably end up with project files in other locations, such as in your email correspondence. You should also be organizing those locations so that the project files end up grouped together wherever you're looking for them. So in your email, set up mailbox labels or folders for your projects as well. So we mentioned that you should move your files out of your downloads folder as soon as possible. Luckily, you can speed this process up by asking your browser to help you. On both Firefox and Chrome, you can update your preferences so that your computer asks you where to save a file each time you download something. This process will also give you the fantastic opportunity to change the file name so that you can avoid having a bunch of useful journal articles being saved as a random string of numbers. We also mentioned that while you want your folders to have useful names, you don't want to rely solely on the descriptive information in a folder hierarchy to tell you what a file is. One of the primary reasons for this is that your folder structure only lives on your computer or in your cloud storage account. As soon as the file is moved or emailed to someone else, it loses all context. So this means you want to make sure that your files have descriptive names. We have all named an unfortunate file something like the final version, but without descriptive file names, your files lose meaning and context when you return to them after a project is finished. There are a number of useful elements that you can use to name your files. A good file name is two things: scannable and sortable. You should only pick a few elements for each file name. Having a handful of elements that you like to use will make it much quicker and easier to name new files as you create them. We've listed some common elements you can use here, but depending on the type of data you've collected, there may be different elements that will have meaning and importance to the project and the files. In addition to using descriptive elements, there are some best practices to keep in mind. We'll cover each of these items and why you should use them, starting with numerical dates. Dates are often a crucial component of a file name, but it matters which format you use, because the computer sees these as numbers, not as dates. As you can see in the top example, when you use a month, day, year format, the file system sorts these by tens first, so that January, October, November, and December will be sorted first, and then February, and so on. If you use a year, month, day format, this will always sort in chronological order. For the same reason that you use a numerical date, you will want to use a leading zero in any instance where you will have sequential numbers in your file name. This is because computers or programs will frequently sort by the first number in the sequence. In these screenshots, when files are named without a leading 0, they are sorted by the tens placed first. Day 1, day 10, and day 11 are sorted together, and then day 2. By using a leading 0 and labeling the file day 01 instead of day 1, the computer will correctly see that day 01 is followed by day 02 and not day 11. If you know that your sequential numbers will go up to 100, use 2 leading zeros, and so forth. In these screenshots, we will see what happens when a file that includes quotation marks and a question mark, located in Google Drive, is then downloaded to a Mac and a Windows computer. On the Mac, the punctuation remains. On the Windows machine, both quote marks and question marks are disallowed characters. The download process automatically deletes these characters from the file name in order to complete the download. In this instance, this is a relatively harmless change, but there may be instances where this unintentional change to the file name presents a major problem, especially if it happens over a large set of files. In the previous example, the special characters in the file name were automatically removed to make the download process work. However, it's more likely that you will run into an unexpected error when using special characters that will require manual intervention to fix. In this screenshot, we see a Windows error because a file with a long dash in its name cannot be zipped up. Being mindful about special characters can prevent future errors where the file cannot be opened or transferred due to some unexpected interaction between operating systems or programs. Primarily, you should only be using alphanumeric characters and short dashes or underscores in your file names. So, we've said previously that you should make sure that both your file and folder names are descriptive. On the flip side, now we're also saying not to be too descriptive. This is for 2 reasons. 1, it's easier to scan file names that don't extend past your File Explorer's display. And number 2 is once again a potential OS incompatibility issue. Windows machines have a limit of 255 characters in the path length, which includes both the file name and the folder names. For the most part, if you are being descriptive and concise, you won't run into this problem. But, as this screenshot shows, that if you do use too many characters, you may run into a significant problem. You can't move, open, or even edit a file name for a file that ends up past that character limit. Whatever you choose, be consistent. In this case, consistency means that your computer will sort them all in the order that you expect. If you are not consistent, for example, if you use a short dash once instead of an underscore to separate the components of a name, and you have a folder with hundreds of files, you might mistakenly think that a file is missing because it got sorted at the top or the bottom of the list. Similarly, if your organizational scheme is consistent, you will more likely be able to locate files later, because they will be where you expect them to be.